I will have that war settled when I'm president-elect, meaning before I get to office on January 20th. Many more people have died in that war than is being reported. I think you know that. You're a pro at the whole thing.
What would you like to see happen with Russia-Ukraine? How would you like to see that deal go down?
So it would have never happened. It didn't happen. You know, a lot of people say, well, how do we know? Actually, Democrats even say that wouldn't have happened October 7th. Israel wouldn't have happened. But what I've told people, I know Putin very well. I told him, don't do it. It was the apple of his eye. We would talk a lot. And Ukraine was the apple of his eye. I said, don't do it, don't do it. I won't go exactly what I said in terms of why you can't do it, but you can't do it. And he wouldn't have done it. He wouldn't have done it anyway. But when he saw Afghanistan, I think that's when he really said, this is a time that he can go in. And I was out. By this time, I was out. But when he saw Afghanistan, I think that changed his whole thinking toward us. He lost respect for the United States. He also has no respect for Biden. Who does? So Putin went in. Zelensky was involved in the impeachment hoax number one. There was a hoax, a couple of hoaxes, which I won both of them. But he was very honorable. I made a very innocent phone call to him to congratulate him on his victory. One of the people that worked for me, not the brightest one, kept asking me to call Zelensky. Call Zelensky. Oh, please call him and congratulate him, because they wanted to do an oil deal or something. I said, call him, and for the United States. And call him and congratulate him. Kept asking me. Finally, I called him. And they took that call, which was a congratulatory call, and they made it into an impeachment, which, and I will say, I got great support from the Republicans. The Republicans were with me in Congress. I think I got 196 out of 196 votes. And when did you ever hear that about the Republicans, right? I had great support. Jim Jordan and all these guys that were great. But and in the Senate, I had great support too. So it was wiped out easily. But I got to know Zelensky then because they asked him at a news conference or something, did President Trump say anything that was threatening to you or bad? This was the reason you got impeached. Can you believe this? And he said, not at all. He was a gentleman. He called me to congratulate me. He said it was a very normal call. Now, he could have grandstanded. I respect him for what he did. He could have said, oh, yeah, I felt very threatened and all that. Just the opposite. He said nothing. He did nothing wrong. And that sort of ended it all. But he was very honorable. I know other people might have done something that could have been different. Now, it also changed because, by luck, the phone call was taped. And it was a perfect call. And they had already started the impeachment process. And when crazy Nancy Pelosi saw the phone call, which was two great stenographers, military stenographers, every word was perfect, right? Very professional. Every word was exactly my conversation is. It was perfect. Congratulations. I actually said, if you find any corruption in your country, please report it to the Attorney General of the United States, which they have to do. We had an agreement with them because Ukraine has been traditionally a very corrupt country. I said, if you find any corruption, please report it to the Attorney General. And what's better than that? And basically, I congratulated him on his victory. But when he went, and by the way, when they saw that the call was essentially recorded, they died. Mm-hmm. They said, how can Nancy Pelosi looked at this idiot Schiff and said, how can you get us to do this? Shifty Schiff is the one that sort of led the charge. He made up all sorts of things. Many of them made up statements about the call, and it turned out to be totally wrong, because when they saw the taped call, the statements were total fraud. But because they're in that building, you're not allowed to sue them for fraud. Anyway, and I tell you, Zelensky was, he was 100% good. So and I've said this before, Sean, I will have that war settled when I'm president-elect, meaning before I get to office on January 20th. Many more people have died in that war than is being reported. I think you know that. You're a pro at the whole thing. You get it. you're a skeptic. You almost have to be a skeptic, especially when you see all the lies. But that war is much more devastating than people understand. And people freeze to death in the winter. You know, Russia's a great winter fighter. They beat Germany and they beat Napoleon. They're not easy to beat.
Yeah.
And they're a massive military. And Ukraine isn't. But Ukraine has us giving them a lot of money. One of the things that's unfair is that you mentioned 170 or so, but I think we're into 250 billion worth of equipment and money and everything else. And Europe is probably at 75 or 80. And I said, they have to equalize. Why are you not? It's much more important for Europe than it is for us. We have an ocean separating us, right? Whereas Russia is right at their doorstep. And Ukraine has always been like sort of a guardrail. It was to Russia. Russia's always been a little difficult, obviously, right? Mm-hmm. Whether it's Russia or Soviet Union for a while, et cetera. But the problem you have, and the thing that most irks me, is all you have to do is say, you got to catch us. You know, Europe, if you add up the countries, is essentially the same size as the United States. Because of certain things I did, we're actually now bigger, but the economy is relatively the same. You know, you add up all the European countries and compare, and they should have paid at least $150 billion more than they've paid. We're way ahead of them. And I say they have to equalize. But I will get that war settled. It would have never began. It's so devastating. Many more people, when you're going to see the end result, just like they lied about jobs today, where the 818,000 jobs were fake. They did that to look good, so, you know, before an election. That wasn't supposed to come out. That was supposed to come out after the election. And they had a leaker somewhere in the statistical department and in Department of Labor.
What would you have invested that $175 billion into our infrastructure? Would you have maybe put it into the power grid?
Well, your power grid, we have everything. I mean, we also have $36 trillion in debt. You know, we're doing all of this. You know, when I rebuilt the military, I came in, and you probably remember this. I thought it was terrible. We had no ammunition. Did you know that?
I did.
We had no ammunition. Our ammunition stock was empty because we had given it to all these people that we defend and that hate us. And I came in, and just before I got there, there were people saying in our military that we have no ammunition. I said, who are these stupid people that would say that anyway? Why would you say that?
No matter where you're watching Sean Ryan Show from, if you get anything out of this, please like, comment, subscribe, and most importantly, share this everywhere you possibly can. And if you're feeling extra generous, please leave us a review on Apple and Spotify podcasts.